Tonight, Alberta's troubling measles milestone, more cases than the entire U.S.
It's disappointing, saddens me that we have gotten to this point.
So how did the outbreak get so bad? And the summer events, experts fear, will make it worse. Flooding frustration, Montreal gets a month's worth of rain in a single day.
They're getting taxes, but they don't do anything.
Why some say it's time to rethink basement living. The deal to send more U.S. weapons to Ukraine.
We are very unhappy, I am, with Russia.
As Donald Trump gives Vladimir Putin a 50-day deadline to end the war.
From CBC News, this is The National with Juanita Taylor.
Thank you for joining us. Adrian is away. There was growing concern tonight about the rapid spread of measles in Canada. Alberta has now seen more measles cases than the United States has reported this year, making the outbreak the largest per capita in North America. The province has been battling outbreaks since March. Over the weekend, more than 24 new measles infections were reported, and health officials believe there are likely going to be more undetected. It's a milestone alarming healthcare workers in that province, and as Julia Wong tells us, some fear it's about to get worse.
When it comes to the highly contagious measles, Alberta now has a dubious distinction. As of Monday, the province has more than 1,300 confirmed cases of the disease, surpassing nearly 1,290 confirmed cases reported in all of the United States.
It's disappointing, it saddens me that we have gotten to this point.
The population of the U.S. is more than 60 times that of Alberta, making this new high point a troubling one for doctors.
I think, if we had gotten to it a little bit sooner and taken it more seriously sooner, then maybe we would not have reached this milestone.
We're seeing this massive step back, and the likelihood that we're going to be able to say measles is eradicated in Canada is essentially nil, I think, at this point.
Measles can lead to dangerous infections, swelling of the brain, and sometimes death. The vast majority of cases have been in people who are unvaccinated, according to the Alberta government. The concern so high, health experts warned babies and unvaccinated kids to stay away from the Calgary stampede. Now, doctors are bracing themselves for another potential surge.
Measles is so intensely transmissible, and there are gathering spaces in closer quarters that I think it would be almost surprising if we didn't see increased cases related to that.
Beyond that, there are worries about what could happen in Alberta's hospitals this fall when school resumes, if things do not get under control.
We simply can't afford to have additional strain on healthcare systems, emergency rooms. We got to get these numbers down before we start picking up our seasonal influenza, RSV, and COVID when summer begins to end here.
So far, no measles deaths have been reported in Alberta, but more than 100 people have been hospitalized.
And Julia, what does Alberta's government have to say about this increase?
So in a statement, the province says that comparisons with the United States can be misleading. It says most of the cases there are concentrated in one state, Texas. It also points to Ontario, which has more than 2,200 measles cases. But keep in mind, Ontario's population is 3 times that of Alberta. The province says the health authority is expanding measles clinics, extending hours and adding locations based on risk and need.
Julia Wong in Edmonton tonight. Thank you, Julia. Residents in Calgary are cleaning up tonight after a severe thunderstorm brought damaging hail, rain, and powerful winds. Hail the size of golf balls fell in some areas. Environment Canada says wind gusts over 90 kilometers per hour tore through the city's northeast. The wind toppled trees, damaging some homes. Across the country, a severe thunderstorm in Montreal triggered damaging flash flooding. Sudden and torrential, it submerged vehicles and overwhelmed sewer pipes. As Sarah Levitt shows us, many frustrated residents want better solutions.
About like that, all over the place.
Jean Chalifou says he's exhausted from taking stock of the damage after the latest downpour.
I listen like that,
Outside his home normally looks like this, but Sunday afternoon it looked like this. The skies in and around Montreal opened up, dark and ominous with rolling thunder, and then came the rain. 70 to 80 millimeters fell in the span of 3 hours. That's nearly as much rain as the city sees the entire month of July. Streets flooded, leaving an 82-year-old man stranded in his submerged car. He had to be rescued. City pipes couldn't handle it, water spewing into basements. 4 families had to be taken in by the Red Cross. Their homes were so damaged. On Monday, the mayor visited residents cleaning up.
We're working really hard to find long-term solutions. There's not a unique solution for the entire territory. Every neighborhood, every street is different.
The city has invested in sponge parks which soak up excess water. It's also replacing some sewer infrastructure. For many, it's not enough.
Last year water was here, and this time
Jagmeet Singh Gill's newly renovated basement got hit a second time in less than a year.
they're getting taxes, but they don't do anything. They should do something for their residents.
The real problem, actually, it's the fact that we have basements.
This expert says it's time to recognize severe storms are going to happen more often. That means rethinking renovations and whether living in basements is practical.
The network was designed based on a historical event that before were actually considered as exceptional. Of course, with climate change, these are not exceptional anymore.
Not exceptional, but sometimes very damaging. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
It's not floods, but wildfires plaguing northern Ontario and the prairies. Manitoba is preparing to shelter thousands more potential evacuees as more than 100 fires burn. Of particular concern is the Island Lake region in the province's north near the Ontario border. Garden Hill First Nation is already evacuated with fire on its doorstep. St. Teresa Point and Wasagamek First Nations are now moving the most vulnerable people out. But that is not an easy process. The armed forces are helping with flights, but not every community has an airstrip. Karen Pauls shows us the scramble to get out and where evacuees are heading next.
With fires burning out of control all around the Island Lake region, this airstrip at Garden Hill First Nation is busy. More than 1,500 people have already been evacuated by the military, joining others who left earlier on commercial flights. But people from communities like Wasagamek First Nation have to cross the lake to get to the airport.
My concern is the access points of leaving, because we don't have an airport here. We either have to go to Garden Hill or St. Teresa to catch a plane.
If visibility is poor and smoke is heavy, we won't even be able to evacuate. So we'll be here fending for ourselves and hopefully being able to find a way to stay away from the fire.
Nearly 250 firefighters from Mexico, Minnesota, Australia, New Zealand, and Quebec are helping to fight the fires burning all over Manitoba. The province says they're making some progress, protecting communities and infrastructure.
Though it has been a bit challenging just due to smoke conditions and some pretty intense fire activity there.
Most Island Lake evacuees have come to Winnipeg, staying in indoor soccer fields and hockey rinks.
Safety first. Yeah, of our family. That's the main thing. That's the main concern I have.
Their leaders trying to support them and find hotel rooms for the most vulnerable.
Usually when you're in a place like that, it'll start affecting everybody. So after three days, everybody's totally restless and stuff like that.
Meanwhile, it's been raining in Winnipeg. Bittersweet for 12,000 evacuees who'd like to see a little bit of this up north where it's so desperately needed. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Wildfire smoke is hanging over southern Ontario tonight. That's on top of sweltering temperatures and high humidity. As Thomas Dagla shows us, the combination is unpleasant for some and downright dangerous for others.
Canada's biggest city under a blanket of smoke, with Toronto facing poor air quality and extreme heat warnings. There's no letting up for those delivering meals on a bike.
Bro, there is a very difficult, there is too much heat. So like wearing a mask
It's a tough time to be sure for all outside workers, as experts urge anyone who can to reschedule outdoor events. The conditions especially dangerous for many.
The very young, the very old, pregnant women, people who are immunocompromised, people with asthma, people with other lung conditions. That ends up being a fairly broad swath of the population.
Devastating wildfires in northern Ontario are sending smoke thousands of kilometers away, with air quality plummeting for millions living in the south. A thick haze hung over Windsor, while tourists at Niagara Falls encountered a dark sky overhead. At one point, Toronto was listed as the city with the worst air quality in the world, behind only Baghdad. Even for those indoors, Environment Canada says to keep windows closed. Those out for an early stroll found out why in a hurry.
When we walked out this morning, it was really hot already, even though, it's super cloudy, and the air quality, as you can see, it's quite bad.
It's obviously hazy. I feel the smoke in the back of my throat.
While the smoke is expected to lift Tuesday, the heat, sometimes feeling like 40 degrees, won't ease until later in the week.
Because the climate crisis is real, we know that the heat waves are starting earlier, lasting longer and more frequent.
Divyansh Singh is keeping his arms and mouth covered. This summer so far, he says, has been brutal.
This year, it's boom, man. It's so bad.
Out for another delivery, he's contending with the conditions as best he can. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
The search for flood victims resumed in central Texas after more heavy rain and flooding hit the region. The driver of this car was rescued after getting stranded in fast-flowing water on a submerged bridge. In some areas, evacuations were ordered. This latest bout of rain caused a week-long search. At least 130 people died. Authorities believe more than 160 people may still be missing. One of two active wildfires in Arizona's Grand Canyon National Park destroyed dozens of buildings and forced the closure of the North Rim for the rest of the season. The historic Grand Canyon Lodge is one of at least 50 structures lost to the fire. That triggered evacuations of nearby residents and visitors. Russia says it has taken control of two villages in eastern Ukraine, one in Donetsk, the other in Zaporizhzhia. Its defense ministry posted this video appearing to show several explosions, as well as soldiers raising Russian flags in the newly claimed villages. The locations have been verified, but when the video was filmed, has not. Donald Trump is ramping up pressure on Russia tonight, threatening harsh tariffs if the war isn't over in 50 days. As Katie Simpson shows us, the U.S. has also confirmed new plans to arm Ukraine with American weapons.
American-made Patriot missiles will be among the weapons surged to the front lines in Ukraine. Part of a broad new U.S. plan to try to pressure Russia into peace talks.
We're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
The U.S. is threatening Russia with tariffs and so-called secondary tariffs, targeting countries that trade with Russia. Those specifics remain unclear. The U.S. will also sell more weapons to NATO countries to replace weapons sent to Ukraine by allies.
No, Mr. President, dear Donald, this is really big.
It's a plan that has plenty of support, according to the NATO Secretary General.
Germany, massively, but also Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, they all want to be part of this.
And it's being welcomed by Ukraine's president, who met with U.S. officials to get more details. I am grateful to President Trump for his readiness to support the protection of our people's lives, said Volodymyr Zelensky. The relationship between these two leaders appears to have improved significantly since their Oval Office blow-up.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin is shifting too.
Well, I think President Trump has figured out that President Putin has been stringing him along.
Trump seems surprised to learn that Putin is not trustworthy.
And I always hang up and say, well, that was a nice phone call. And then missiles are launched into Kiev or some other city. And I said, strange. And after that happens 3 or 4 times, you say, the talk doesn't mean anything.
After more than 3 years of fighting, this may be a moment of clarity for Trump.
Of a recognition that Putin is not a friend, that Putin is the problem, Putin is the obstacle to what President Trump is trying to do on ending this war.
Donald Trump's support for Ukraine in this moment comes with some caveats. He says the U.S. will not be paying for any of the American-made weapons that are sent to the front lines. It's an attempt to appease some in his MAGA support base who do not want American tax dollars spent on foreign wars.
And Katie, Trump is trying to distance himself from this conflict.
Yeah, he's repeatedly called it Joe Biden's war as a way to give himself some cover should the fighting grind on. And that, too, is a change in tone for Trump, who promised during the U.S. election campaign that he'd end the war in a day.
All right, Katie Simpson in Washington, thank you. An RCMP officer from Quebec is under investigation, accused of making threats online when they were deployed to the G7 summit in Alberta in June. According to the Journal de Montreal, those comments were about Donald Trump. And the newspaper also says the officer is accused of leaking information about Trump's movements. The RCMP tells CBC News the officer is the subject of both a criminal investigation and internal code of conduct review. One of the 4 Quebec men accused of being part of an alleged anti-government plot has been granted bail. Matthew Forbes, a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces, was given a list of conditions, including wearing a GPS bracelet. RCMP alleged the men were intending to forcibly seize land near Quebec City. They were arrested last week after police seized a hoard of explosives, guns, and ammunition in 2024. The Canadian Armed Forces now says those weapons did not come from them. The other 3 men charged with terrorism-related offenses remain behind bars for now. Mark Carney's finances are back in the spotlight, and Pierre Poilievre is raising concerns.
We're calling on the Prime Minister to sell his investments.
Why Carney could face scrutiny despite following the rules. Canada's obesity rate has spiked substantially.
Just didn't have anywhere to go or anything to do.
The role played by the pandemic. And a hike in BC takes a dramatic turn.
I just realized, oh crap, man, that's actually a cougar.
We're back in 2. The first round of tickets for next year's World Cup games went on sale today in Canada, and they cost a lot. Single came VIP packages start at $2,500, and prices rise quickly. Canadian fans will get a chance to buy cheaper tickets, but you may have to enter a lottery just for a chance to buy them. 13 games will be split between Toronto and Vancouver. The U.S. and Mexico will host nearly 100 more. A list of Mark Carney's investments is now public, along with the ethics plan to prevent him from running into any conflicts of interest as Prime Minister. But as Ashley Burke explains, Pierre Poilievre says much more needs to be done.
And the workers who build them contribute.
It was an issue on repeat during the election.
Do you have any, in Stripe and Brookfield, do you have any equity stock options?
Questions about Mark Carney's personal finances and potential conflicts of interest after a high-profile career in the private sector.
I have complied with all of the rules. In fact, I've over-complied with all of the rules.
After becoming Liberal leader, Carney said he put his assets into a blind trust, except for cash and real estate.
It's a blind trust. I can't, what that means, for those who don't follow this, I have no control over it anymore.
He doesn't control that trust, but he knows what he put into it. And now, for the first time, Canadians do too. The Ethics Commissioner released Carney's disclosures, a long list including shares of the payment platform Stripe, and options and deferred shares of Brookfield, an investment management company. He had served on boards for both.
We're calling on the Prime Minister to sell his investments, turn them into cash, hand them to a trustee who can invest them in a way that is completely blind to him, so that he does not have any knowledge of what he owns.
A process has been set up known as an ethics screen to prevent Carney from handling certain files.
He's probably under a little bit more of a scrutiny with respect to the screen because he is a very connected individual with huge networks of companies.
Carney's recusing himself from any talks, debates, or decisions involving more than 100 corporate entities, more than 70 of them which are linked to Brookfield, listed out of an abundance of caution.
This is the largest screen of this nature that I've ever seen, and I think it's going to be very challenging to administer.
He says it's so broad, it will be difficult to make sure that nothing crosses Carney's desk that shouldn't. The Prime Minister's office points out that Carney took this action proactively and went further than he had to. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
There's new evidence tonight linking the pandemic to a sharp spike in Canada's obesity rate.
We're going to see more of the complications.
The factors at play and the concern for the future. Why Brazil's taking the brunt of Donald Trump's trade war.
It seems that Trump is using trade as a political weapon.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world next. A frightening scene in Florida as a small plane crashed into a residential neighborhood on Sunday. The plane narrowly missed homes and cars as it went down. All 3 passengers and the pilot on board survived. They're being treated in hospital.
Sadly, we can now confirm that all 4 people on board died.
We're learning more about the fatal crash of a small plane on Sunday near London. It was taking off from a small airport when witnesses were shaken by a huge fireball, followed by a large plume of smoke. The South End Airport is now closed to all flights. Obesity rates have jumped sharply in Canada, and new research ties much of the jump to the pandemic. As Jennifer Lagrassa shows us, experts blame a mix of factors from isolation to disrupted routines.
In the early months of the pandemic, Angela Martin says cooking was her comfort. As a nurse, food helped her cope with the stress.
Social supports were away. You couldn't go to the gym, like where my social life was. So just didn't have anywhere to go or anything to do. And so it just kind of piled on slowly but surely.
While Martin has always struggled with obesity, she says the pandemic made her weight gain worse. And according to new research, she's not alone.
And we found that the rate of obesity was steadily increasing.
The study, published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, found that in 2023, 1/3, or 10.6 million Canadians, were considered obese, up about 8 percentage points since 2009. The study used body mass index, or BMI, which researchers recognize is an imperfect measure of health, but still allows them to spot trends. They found that during the pandemic, the rate of obesity nearly doubled.
Many different reasons have been hypothesized for this, such as increased sedentary behavior. Another main reason might be factors associated with mental health.
One expert who works with people struggling with obesity says isolation likely played a role.
People who are living with depression, their depression may have got even worse, and that's where we saw people having an increase in their weight.
The research also found that since 2009, obesity increased the most in young adults, and that more women became severely obese.
With the more severe rates of obesity, we're going to see more of the complications. So the complications end up being type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, coronary artery disease.
Since this data was collected, popular weight loss drugs have become more available in Canada, raising questions about whether that will impact the obesity rate. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to break down the stories shaping our world. Canada forced these Inuit to move far from home. At long last, a reason to celebrate. But first, Donald Trump and his grudge against Brazil.
A brand new 50% tariff.
It's very obvious that this is not about trade.
It is a tangled tale of kindred spirits.
Feeling like they've been victims of witch hunts.
But there's more to it than that. Andrew Chang, host of CBC's About That, peels back all the layers of a very expensive payback.
On its face, Brazil might seem like a really weird country for the U.S. to have beef with. During Donald Trump's first term, they were pretty cozy. Look, there was an exchange of jerseys and everything. Trump even had Brazil's president over to Mar-a-Lago. That's him right there. And when it comes to trade, for almost 20 years, Brazil has been one of the relatively few countries in the world with whom the U.S. has run a trade surplus. As in, every year, the U.S. sells to Brazil billions of dollars more in goods than it buys, which is exactly the way Trump likes his trading relationships.
Whatever they charge us, we're charging them. Nobody can complain about that.
So why, when the US president threatened country after country this week with these templated cut and paste tariff letters, many of which use the exact same language? It is a great honor for me to send you this letter. Our relationship has been, unfortunately, far from reciprocal. Please understand that these tariffs are necessary. Why does Trump seem to reserve a special place in hell just for Brazil, throwing around language like international disgrace, talking about witch hunts that should end immediately in capital letters, insidious attacks, secret and unlawful censorship orders, and to top it all off, a brand new 50% tariff, 50%, on all Brazilian goods shipped to the United States? Well, turns out the first reason is personal, and the second reason might be even more personal than the first. Let me explain. The so-called witch hunt that has triggered Trump's latest series of attacks against Brazil's current president is the criminal investigation set to go to trial this year into Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, whom Trump respected greatly. And yes, it's the same guy in the jersey swap and at dinner, the man who came to be known as the Trump of the tropics.
It implies similarity in style and substance between both. In substance, in terms of their populist and nationalistic rhetoric, their far-right ideology, their contempt for democratic norms.
Quase todas as fake news que se voltaram contra mim partiram da Folha de São Paulo.
Jair Bolsonaro narrowly lost Brazil's most recent election to left-leaning Lula da Silva. And the following year, he was actually barred from running for office again until 2030 because he followed in Trump's footsteps a little more directly.
The party behind former President Jair Bolsonaro challenging the election results after losing a close but definite election to President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
The current popular movements are the result of indignation and feelings of injustice at how the electoral process took place.
Bolsonaro never did accept that 2022 election loss, and neither did many of his supporters. On January 8th, just a few days after the inauguration of Bolsonaro's opponent, thousands stormed and smashed their way into Congress, Brazil's presidential palace, its Supreme Court, blocking highways, attacking police, fueled by repeated claims of electoral fraud. Bolsonaro, who was in Florida at the time, has denied inciting the riots. But Brazil's top electoral court ruled that he had abused his power in trying to overturn the election result, while casting unfounded doubts on the country's electronic voting system. Again, sound familiar?
This election was rigged, and the Supreme Court and other courts didn't want to do anything about it.
The events between January 6th and January 3rd are similar, oddly parallel. It's not really a coincidence. Imagine Bolsonaro looked at Trump and saw in him someone that's very akin to what he wanted to do. They came from this idea of grievance, of being blocked out by an all-controlling elite, of corruption, sowing distrust in institutions, trying to retake control over some sort of very vague, non-proven conspiracy that they've been locked out of power. But more importantly, what it was doing was capturing this sense of public frustration. That is the coalition that both Trump and Bolsonaro have built, of in some cases business leaders, but also cases of people who feel that simply their voices have not been heard. So they both, in that sense, captured this sense of anger and effectively channeled it against democratic institutions.
So when Donald Trump openly rails against the way Bolsonaro had been treated, defending but also identifying with him, echoing some of the same claims he has made about himself, that he is not guilty of anything except having fought for the people, that this is nothing more or less than an attack on a political opponent, something I know much about. It happened to me, times 10. And when he makes it explicitly clear that this forms part of the basis for the punishment about to be brought down, starting on August 1st, 2025, we will charge Brazil a tariff of 50% on any and all Brazilian products sent into the United States. Trump is making absolutely clear his own personal scores will decide how the United States economy is wielded as a weapon.
It's very obvious that this is not about trade.
It seems that Trump is using trade as a political weapon, and it signals that political loyalty and personal relationship matter as much, if not more, than economic logic for Trump's foreign policy.
But it might get even more personal than that, and I'll show you how. Trump Media is an incorporated company, majority owned by Donald Trump. He created it shortly after he was banned from Twitter in 2021. And Truth Social was born from that, the crown jewel of Trump Media, where Trump himself will post thoughts, threats, homages to himself, sometimes dozens of times a day. This past February, Trump Media sued a man by the name of Alexandre de Moraes. He's a Brazilian Supreme Court justice whose legal decisions, according to the lawsuit, attempted to illegally censor American companies, in particular by banning accounts tied to prominent supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. This crackdown, the lawsuit alleges, also targeted critics of the current Brazilian president. Basically, Trump Media didn't want Brazilian justices making rules in the American social media ecosystem. But there's another layer to this, because this lawsuit was filed just hours after Bolsonaro was charged in Brazil for trying to defy the country's election result, and while Justice de Moraes happened to also be presiding over a series of other charges against Bolsonaro, including allegations he falsified a vaccination card and embezzled jewelry. I'll let you read for yourself how the New York Times characterized the timing of Trump's legal attack. The lawsuit appeared to represent an astonishing effort by Mr. Trump to pressure a foreign judge as he weighed the fate of a fellow right-wing leader who, like him, was indicted on charges that he tried to overturn his election loss.
They both now share this common grievance of feeling like they've been victims of witch hunts. It's more than a witch hunt, but he sees a kindred spirit in Bolsonaro, and they share this sense of grievance and a sense of I confess, a certain messianic approach to politics, which is often the case with populist leaders of the left and the right.
This is just a small window into Trump's legal battle with Brazil. But his newest threat of 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods, that represents a much more public-facing fight.
The tariffs could be hugely damaging to Brazil. The United States are Brazil's second most important trading partner.
There may very well be other reasons Trump is singling out Brazil now. It's worth pointing out, for example, Brazil is the B in BRICS. That's a trade partnership that actually includes 10 rapidly growing economies to which, maybe for a few reasons, the US does not belong.
What they created is not an international organization, but a platform for cooperation and exchange between the governments.
Those countries met recently in Brazil for their annual summit, avoiding mentioning the United States by name in a joint resolution, but slamming all the same indiscriminate rising of tariffs and voicing serious concerns about the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures. That's as close to a shot at Trump as anyone would dare to take, to which Trump would reply on Truth Social, any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. And so, Trump's targeting of Brazil would now appear to go far beyond conventional trade economics.
These are not issues of economic statecraft. These are issues of trying to use an instrument of taxation to block trade for his own personal petty disagreements. And I don't think we've seen the end of this. I think we'll see this continue on.
But also, this isn't really new, is it? Whether it's fentanyl, border security, immigration, or defense spending, Trump has never really been shy about admitting that tariffs are about so much more than just trade. It's using America's greatest strength, its economy, as leverage. Brazil is just the latest target, of which Trump appears to have many.
Well, if the U.S. follows through with that 50% tariff on Brazilian products, analysts say Americans will end up paying a good deal more for coffee. Wholesale prices are already high from drought and a tighter global supply. Coming up, a long-awaited apology for the descendants of Inuit families who were forced from their homes.
The biggest thing for them to hear of, yes, we did wrong.
The immense work that led to that movement. The painful origin of a long-awaited apology.
The biggest thing for them to hear, yes, we did wrong.
Canada forced Inuit families to move further north for its own political gain.
We are sorry. Mami anak.
How the spirit of a people survived. Well, earlier this year, I traveled to Arctic Bay on Baffin Island to hear from one of the few remaining survivors. Here's another look at what I found there. Arctic Bay in Nunavut is the third most northern community in Canada, and it's where Isaac Suyuk lives. Hi, Suyuk. He's getting ready for a historic day to hear the Canadian government apologize for relocating his family and others from Kingate to Dundas Harbour on Devon Island. These jackets are a symbol of his 15-year fight to hear those words. Wow. Piuyo aloin. He wore this one when he met with federal officials when negotiations began. If he accepts the apology, he'll wear white for joy and happiness. Suyuk was born in 1939, just 10 miles east from here. His family is among the first Inuit in Canada to be relocated to the high Arctic for Canada's sovereignty. More than 90 years later, their descendants are still feeling the loss and pain from the relocations. In 1934, over 50 Inuit from Baffin Island were selected by the Hudson's Bay Company to move more than 1,000 kilometers to Dundas Harbour, where it had set up a new trading post. The federal government approved the plan. They sailed on the Nisqually to uninhabited Devon Island. The families were dropped off to hunt, trap, and trade and be a Canadian presence in the far north, with a promise from the government to return home after 2 years. When the ship returned, instead of going back to Kingate, the families were dropped off in Arctic Bay against their wishes. Suyuk says his grandmother was devastated. When the Several families were moved yet again to Hudson's Bay posts in Fort Ross and Spence Bay.
1937?
Laisha Kavavau's family was also relocated. Laisha's daughter, Lucy Kavavau, is helping to get the acknowledgement. Lucy, how are you feeling about the apology?
It's incredible. The biggest thing for them to hear of, yes, we did wrong.
For the past 15 years, the Dundas Harbour Relocation Society has been working to get compensation and an apology. It all started with this letter, written by Suyuk himself to federal officials. Sarah Phillip is with the society. She is also a descendant.
As Inuit always say that
they adapt very quickly and they forgive easily. That's how they survived. Otherwise, if you don't forgive, you can't go on.
And on February 27th, the day they have been long waiting for, Suyok and his community finally heard those words.
We are sorry. We are sorry. Mami anak. The government of Canada took advantage of its dominant position over Inuit living in the Arctic and moved them to further its geopolitical goals without due regard to the desires of the relocatees or impact that the move would have on them. The relocation should not have occurred without the informed consent of those to be moved.
Where a moment of silence was held for these descendants and for the more than 200 other descendants that have since been found. Bringing celebrations for Inuit, who have been waiting for this day to come. The Dundas Harbour relocation is considered the first time Inuit were relocated to benefit Canada's sovereignty. The government has provided compensation that's going to more than 200 descendants of the families affected. Next, a hike through the Vancouver Island wilderness goes sideways.
So I got broke down, and then it was like, no, just calm down. You're in a survival situation.
His multi-day trek to safety in our moment. Well, this is Dallin Beaumier, pictured here stranded in the wilderness when a solo hike through central Vancouver Island took a scary turn. Well, fortunately, with the help of some survival instincts, he made it back home safely. So tonight, his harrowing tale makes our moment.
I decided to go on a hike to the central area of Vancouver Island up to Della Falls. You know, after just enjoying the falls, I went down and I heard this growling noise behind me and just realized, oh crap, man, that's actually a cougar. Come on! I grabbed a big rock off the ground and then the growling actually faded. It stopped.
Much bigger than a regular kitty.
I got into my car and my car bounced and hit a rock on the road and my oil pan drained out.
That doesn't look good.
So I got broke down and then it was like, no, just calm down. You're in a survival situation. So I was just like, I think I'm going to try to build a handcart, but obviously it ended up falling apart a couple kilometers down the road. So I ended up turning that into a sledge. Camped once along the way and then ran into a very kind gentleman who offered to drive me on the water taxi out to Port Alberni. That's how the whole thing ended up playing out.
Well, Search and Rescue said they felt lucked out by how detailed Beaumier's trip was and that he shared it with family before heading out. And that kind gentleman who helped him, well, they shared a meal together before heading to the rescue squad hall, and you guessed it, they had McDonald's. Well, thank you for being with us tonight. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the Nationals YouTube channel. I'm Juanita Taylor. Davao Buhi. Take care.